everybody. Welcome to the Enough Said podcast. We are starting season 2 today. We are so excited to be doing that. We thank everybody for listening to season 1. As always, feel free to reach out to us, enoughsaidcrew@gmail.com. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, you want to beat up on anybody like Dre or Jermaine, feel free to do that. We do read emails. But today, what a way to start off season 2. We have 2 great guests today. So let's talk about this first guy real quick. He's been employed by more professional sports teams than Tim Tebow, but he's still the boss. Say hi to Ross, everybody. What's up, Ross?
How's it going, gang?
What's up, Ross?
What's up, Ross? What's up, man?
All right.
Good positive day.
This second guy is a friend of Ross, and they go back a long way. We're glad to have him on the phone. Let's just say they call him Mike D'Antoni because he throws a mean can of beefaroni. Say hi to Mike, everybody.
Hey everyone.
What's up,
Mike? Beefaroni.
We're going to get to that because I got to find out more about this story. So we'll talk about this. All right. This next guy, the usual suspects. This guy wanted James Harden in the worst way. Jermaine had to put him back on probation to stay. Say hi to Dre, everybody. What's up, Dre?
What's up, everybody? Yeah, that's right. Get rid of Ben.
And last but not least, Jermaine. When Ron comes on the show, it gives him fits, but not as much with those Valentine's gifts. So say hi to Jermaine. What's up?
What's up, everybody? What's going on?
What up, Jermaine?
We got to talk about those Valentine's gifts, man. Come on. You got to do better than that with your wife, man. Come on. Dre's going to get a phone call after this podcast. I know. So, just for Ross and Mike, I try to get dirt every week. We have a meeting the Friday before, and now these guys are like hiding stuff from me because they don't want me to say it on the podcast. But
yeah, he's real quiet, guys. He's real quiet. It's like, all right, Sal, you got to talk, all right, because you're sitting up there and your brain is just burning. That has something to put on this podcast. So, the introductions.
Surprise.
Yep. All right, cool. So let's start out with the NFL here real quick. Ross, let's start with you, man. You happy with the way the season went? Best team win the Super Bowl? All life is good? What's going on in the NFL?
I thought a very deserving team won the Super Bowl.
Okay.
And I think that's the best way you can say it every year because there's so many teams where just like, hey, if one play had gone the other way, someone else could have been holding that trophy. But I was fortunate enough to work with Coach McVay in Washington, and what a legitimate, positive guy. And in that sort of environment where it's not always positive, to see that radiating from someone, that gives you hope as you're trudging through the day and trudging through the season. So knowing that he brought that to LA, and that's why people keep taking coaches from his staff, because he's a culture changer. He's not just an X and O's guy. He's amazing at X's and O's, but he understands people, and he understands people wanting to work hard for you. And that's when you get over the hump in the NFL. If you have players holding other players accountable and you have everyone buying into the program and the system, that's what gives you a shot to win in the NFL. So congrats to the Rams. Yeah, I mean, there were plenty of other teams that would have been great Super Bowl champions. I was cheering for the Bengals and thought they really earned their way the whole way through. So, kudos to that. The season, I was actually excited when the season was over because it was so long this year that it felt like a job. So we'll see how that goes moving forward. But, enjoyed it. Congrats to the Rams. Congrats to the Bengals. And I'm excited that everyone's back to 0-0 right now. And, the draft isn't that far away.
Yeah. So, Mike, what do you got, man? You happy with the 2 teams that went?
Yeah, the thing that struck me was it's not often, right, that a team puts a strategy and a plan in place and then over the course of a season executes it, right, to deliver, right? They went and got the quarterback. They went and got the players. They gave up the draft picks. They went all in and all this stuff, and they got it done, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was either win the Super Bowl or it's a bust, and the new quarterback got it done. As Ross said, the leadership, like, to me, that doesn't happen, right? Every team has a plan, What was the famous line, Mike Tyson? Everyone has a plan till you get punched in the face, right?
Yeah.
So, the Rams,
Mhm.
they literally before the season did what they were going to. They accomplished what they said they were going to do. I mean, so in that regard, I agree with Ross. They're the most deserving team. The Bengals 3rd and 1. If they get that first down or 4th and 1, it could have been a different outcome. And that's how close the NFL was this year. It was certain plays, right? I mean, you know, every Super Bowl loser probably has those plays that they think about if we had just gotten those 2 or 3 plays done, right?
Mhm.
Except maybe
Absolutely.
the Broncos against the Seahawks
Yeah.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
Jermaine, can we finally say McVay is a McGenius? What's going on here?
I don't say he's a genius, but I do like the part to where he adapted. Because
Mm,
when Odell Beckham, we all talked about this, when Beckham went down, it's like,
mhm.
because I think he
Yeah.
was not just Stafford, but he was Beckham was the X factor bringing him in here to
Mhm.
replace Robert Woods. So um, yeah, I just like what Ross was saying, you got to give McVay respect because I didn't actually give it to him.
Mhm.
Seeing that he put on that show when he played the Patriots and he looked like he was just
Mhm.
clueless. It's just like, oh my God, what am I doing here? But
Mhm.
with this last Super Bowl, yeah, the best team won. They deserve to win. And McVay kind of, you know, put it in my brain to say, yeah, he's not a genius, but he is. He adapted, and that's what good coaches do. They adapt. They don't panic. They adapt. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? And that's what I give McVay respect for. So
And I think that's where Andy Reid can't get over the hump. We'll talk more about that later. Andy just
yeah,
can't seem to do that.
yeah.
Dre, I know you and I both picked the Bengals at the beginning of the year to be this,
Yeah.
big fantasy team that was going to go all the way to the end. We really thought they had a shot as a sleeper team. And so what do you think, man? Disappointed they didn't pull it out, or does McVay
No,
deserve his props?
not disappointing. I actually commend them. I mean, because like I told you, I was watching them in late November, and I was like, you know what? Nobody's talking about the Bengals, and people are like, they're hanging around and stuff and that. But you can't call them a Cinderella team because they beat legitimate teams. They beat Tennessee. They beat Kansas City. I mean, 7 sacks. How do you win coming off of 7 sacks? Okay, and then rattled Patrick Mahomes. So you look at this Bengals team where they had a rookie wide receiver that was ultimately like amazing, okay? And then Burrows, who's actually managed it very well. But back to the part about McVay, when they lost Odell Beckham and the pendulum looked like it was going to be keep it staying to Cincinnati, what did he do? He turned the volume up on the pass rush because that was with the weakness of the Bengals. So I think the Bengals, if they can get that offensive line together, they're going to be back next year. I think so. So yeah, I think the right team won. But yeah, I wanted to see the Bengals go all the way, man, because they were just an amazing team.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And Ross, let's talk about that a little because McVay's 34 years old. He talked about now he wants to have a family and all that. Talk about the stress, especially now the NFL season's longer, like you mentioned. It felt like it was forever. How are these coaches adjusting and getting through this? I mean, here this guy just had one of the best seasons of his life. He won the Super Bowl, and he's like, you know what? I want a family. I want a break.
Well, and I think some of that is also, where everyone was it Michelle Tafoya that asked immediately, "Are you retiring?"
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and maybe that was to Aaron Donald,
It was the Aaron Donald, yeah.
but
Mm-hmm.
in that same capacity, like it's that's doing a journalist's job where you want to give 24 hours for these people to think about it because especially getting to the end of that journey
Mm-hmm.
and how long everyone had to commit and sacrifice and everything they had to do to get to that point, you can't make a knee-jerk reaction at the end of
Mm-hmm.
a game, like whether you're a coach, whether you're a player.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Andrew Whitworth probably knows what he's doing already, but anyone else, it's, hey, I'm mentally and physically exhausted right now. I'm not going to give you the same answer I'm going to give you after I've had time to reflect on this and get into things. So, and it is like, it is because McVay already knows he's losing his offensive coordinator. Like, the game hasn't even started and he knows he's losing his offensive coordinator. So what do I do next? He's been adept at bringing the next person up, but I think you all saw that with the Eagles is once your pantry's raided and you have that many good coaches on your coaching staff, it's hard to replace them that quickly and turn it back around again. So like Doug Peterson lost so many great coaches and it impacts the building and everything that you're doing with it. So it's a grind. You have to love it and it has to be the most important thing in your life. So I understand that that's where Coach McVay is sitting there saying like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be all in with it. But if I want to be all in with my family and with a family instead, I need to go in this direction. So it's kind of just thinking those things through. Like, will I get this opportunity again? Do I need this opportunity? So, I think whether you're on the team that quote unquote wins the first pick of the draft or whether you're on the Super Bowl winner, you need a month to decide, what do I want for my life at this point once the season ends, because it is so all consuming.
Yeah, it is. And Mike, being an Eagles fan, you know what happened with Andy Reid and his son and everything like that. It does take a toll on you, and it's a sacrifice. So, I mean, what do you think? Is the season too long? Should they scale back at this point and say, you know what, maybe it is too hard and too grinding? Should they knock it down? Does it really affect these coaches as much as Ross is saying? I think it is.
Well, also you got to keep in mind, and Ross could probably speak to this, but like these are NFL football people are lifers, right? I mean, this is what they eat, sleep, and breathe. You know, I think initially, right, with change around going to 17 games, there's always going to be like, why are we doing this? But for me as a fan, it wasn't even noticeable, right? Adding an extra game and the playoffs being how great they were. Football. I've said this to Ross over the years. They could have NFL week where they play an NFL game one game a day, and the ratings would be through the roof, and it would be a celebration, and people would watch every game. That's how much people love the NFL, right? So, you know, all sports have become full year, right? Back in the day, in the 60s, 70s, even 80s, athletes didn't train all year round, right? There was,
What about John Kruk?
yeah, right. So, the level of competition has increased, the money, right? The perks. It's a 12-month job now. And that's what they sign up for, and that's why they get the money, and that's why they get the fame, and that's why they, get all these things. The crazy thing about the coach is he's 34. Like,
Yeah.
he could retire and have another career in another industry and retire. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's insane to think about as we have our own professional jobs, right? Like, he could do anything he wants in life, as most of these athletes could do based on financials, right? If they handle their money properly, they could do whatever they want in a secondary post-career life.
Yep. No, absolutely. So, Jermaine, we talked about that, and it's a tough decision picking a head coach, right? And right now, there's a lot of controversy going around, especially with Washington. Why are they hiring certain coaches, right? And where are they going? There's a big push now. Why aren't more African American coaches hired right now? And what's going on with that? So, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, are these coaches picked the right way? Do they need to kind of rethink things and do a little more in the interview and what's involved in the interview and the stressors of what goes on during the season when they pick these coaches, or what's going on, man?
I think the whole format needs to change altogether. I think more and more, I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, is that, the NFL just needs to, the whole thing's got to change. I mean, with the African Americans and the Rooney Rule, my opinion is that the Rooney Rule is just a bunch of crock. It's just something in there to saying, hey, this is what we have to do. I mean, and teams are just taking advantage of it and saying, okay, yeah, we did our due diligence and we're just going to move on, So, but I think the biggest thing the biggest thing needs the NFL, the format with that particular situation, it does need to change, and it needs to change very fast before it really starts really getting out. I think it's out of hand now, but it's every year that when a coach gets fired, what's going to happen? You know what I mean? What's going to happen? So yeah, I just my biggest thing is the format. As far as Goodell, just get involved and just reformatting this whole situation.
Well, and on top of that, kudos to the Rooney family. Um, turning around
Right.
and hiring the coach from Miami, hiring Coach Flores to be an assistant, even with all of this going on. So
Yeah.
I know the Rooneys, like I was fortunate enough to work for the Modell family who hired Ozzie Newsome as the first black GM
right
in the NFL. And Ozzie earned it. Like there are other executives around the league who, because they were great players, just were able to become a GM. Ozzie learned scouting under Bill Belichick. He worked. He watched the tape. He drove to the college campuses. He earned his spot. It wasn't, oh, hey, you're great for our name, so we're going to have you here. Not talking about Denver or anything like that.
Right.
But Ozzie earned his spot as a man and as a person, and watching James Harrison or James Shaq Harris hand the trophy to the Rams owner after they won the championship, or the NFC championship. That was exciting because Shaq worked for Ozzie when I was there. So I got to know him. I got to know John Wooten was part of that group. I'm so fortunate that I've been around such great, not just leaders, but when you look at it and everything that's discussed today, the great black leaders of the NFL, and I was around them, as a pup, learning and seeing like, okay, now I understand what's difficult here. Now I better understand what's difficult here, and following what Shaq is doing, following what John Wooten's doing. Obviously Ozzie's done the great things he has, but then you get a vilified Art Modell who has made these decisions and said, I don't care what color you are. Like, you're great at this job, so I'm going to do that. And getting those opportunities, and the Rooneys do that as well. So it's unfortunate, but we also have very rich people who have become rich by circumventing rules to get what they want. So the Rooney Rule is just another law. This one's just not made by Congress to hold corporations back. So, you look at it that way, and it's just like, okay, here's the rule. How can we cheat this to benefit us?
Right.
And Dre, I mean, to me, it's amazing. Eric Bieniemy, how is this guy not a coach? Deuce Staley, you can go down the list. These guys have put in their time, right? So, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, they should have definitely, they have the credentials and experience. They should, Bieniemy. But I'm gonna flip the other way around. Actually, like, Lovie Smith, he got hired, but Cauley should stayed as, should have been the coach, So it's like, did they just hire Lovie just because to hit the status quo? You know what I mean? So and then also I'm agreeing with everybody on this podcast here about the whole Rooney Rule and stuff, and I said before, NFL was kind of like stepping back. Well, they got to step up. They're kind of behind the times. Is what I'm trying to say. So, give the coaches Deuce Staley and them they're what they deserve.
So
Yeah.
the problem, here's my problem. Whether it be Rooney Rule, format, qualified candidates, there's still only how many teams are there? 34?
32?
32.
There's 32 decision makers. And at the end of the day, no pun intended, it's a very black or white decision, right?
Right.
You're going to hire this person or this person. And ultimately, there's only 32 decision makers, right? And what Ross said, at the end of the day, regardless of issues, they're going to do what's best, what they think is best for their team. And that's the biggest problem is how does Goodell navigate and telling an owner that they need more of this than that when it comes down to their decision making? Ultimately, 32 owners. That's the problem is so easy to see but hard to solve, in my opinion, right? Because I think someone said it, right? Every decision now is so highlighted, right? If a head coach gets hired and he's, the Eagles defensive coordinator is getting interviews for head coaching job, like it's bizarre.
Really,
Like, it's just bizarre as just a person, as a lay person watching the NFL, and it's like, do they know more than us? Do they know something we don't know, or is it just blatant racism? I mean, like, what is it, or is it all of the above, right? And I just think it's going to be a hard problem to solve because there's 32 decision makers, and every time a head coach is hired, it's just going to come up again and again and again.
Yeah, and that's something that you said then, Mike. I mean, the simple fact of Bieniemy, Ross. When you and Sal bringing up Bieniemy, is this something that we're, like you said, is this something that we're missing? I mean, this man's been an offensive coordinator under Andy Reid. I mean, he has a Super Bowl. I mean, he's like an architect, of that offense and everything. What are we missing? I mean, is it race? Or is it the talent? I mean, same thing with Deuce Staley. Deuce Staley put his time in with the Philadelphia Eagles, 10 plus years. I mean, that's what. Yeah, you're right, Mike. What is it? What is going on? Because from the outside looking in, I mean, these guys look like they're very talented and they got the experience. But what are we missing?
I think with Bieniemy, and I'm excited for when he does get his shot. Like, I think he's going to do well. I think there is an unknown there because Andy Reid is calling the plays. So they are tethered together. So if you're deciding, hey, is this person going to take my organization to the next level? There is a question mark there. Mm-hmm. I believe he can do it personally, and I want to see him get that opportunity. But I'm also not a billionaire owner who is deciding like, hey, yep, I'm going to take this chance here. And that's where, I mean, I don't know that he has re-signed with Kansas City yet and that all the offensive coordinator positions are open. Does he have to go, unfortunately, does he have to go prove himself as just the OC and as the play caller and not as Andy Reid's sidecar? And is that how it's being looked at a little bit in his specific case?
And look at Byron Leftwich, great example, Tampa Bay. He's coming up as being a very good coordinator. And he's stepping in the right direction to be a head coach.
But I think Byron did this cause better by not taking that job if he was offered it, and not saying I'm going to take it just because I can get it and people think it's cool.
Okay, yeah.
Because
smart.
I've never met Trent Baalke. I've heard plenty of things that are not sunshiny about the guy. So setting yourself up for the right position. I don't know that Lovey is set up. Lovey is not set up for success in his position. David Culley was not set up for success in his position. So good on Byron Leftwich, and it gives me even more faith in him as a leader to say, no, I'm not just going to take the first thing that you throw me. I know how good I am. I'm in a good position now, and I'm just going to keep earning my spot until the right thing comes along.
And real fast, is that the same thing with Mike McDaniel? Because he's I'm sorry, no.
Josh.
No. From San Francisco. The East Mix,
who went to the Dolphins.
Yeah,
and I just don't know. I know he's another great coach in that vein of coaches where it's just like he's been taught the power of positivity in the league. I think you got to see last year in Jacksonville this overblown egomaniac that just tries to rule by keeping people under his thumb. But then you get to see a McVay, you get to see, what they've done in Green Bay, what they did in Cincinnati, where the power of positivity, and that's what you need with these special athletes, and to get people to commit to the cause and say, hey, we're all going to do this together. And I'm going to see Andrew Whitworth pulling up his jersey on the stage when they're getting the Super Bowl, showing Higbee and Woods that, hey, I care so much about you guys that I had you written over my heart during this game. Yeah. That's the difference.
Right.
Yeah. And that brings up a good point. The next one I was going to ask you guys real quick before we jump into hockey. So is there a perception by these coaches as well? Like, I don't want to work for these GMs. So is some of it, they just don't want to take the job too, because they see what some of these GMs are doing and they don't want to get into a position like that. I mean, would you want to work for Daniel Snyder? I mean, so, right. It's just, so I think that's part of it too. The jobs are available. Same thing for the job in Jacksonville. They said the reason why Jacksonville got Doug Peterson is because not many people wanted that job and work for him down there.
I don't want to work for Cobra Commander. No.
Yeah. So will Doug Peterson turn that team around? Time will tell. We'll see. Yep. But anyway. All right. Well, switching gears a little bit, let's get into hockey. We haven't talked about hockey on this show at all, and it's a good time to do it because, number one, we all know the Capitals suck, but the Capitals are still better than the Flyers. So we got that to deal with. When I was talking to the guys before the show, one of the things they said is, how do we even get started to get back into hockey? Dre said in the beginning, I haven't watched hockey in so long. So Mike, what is it like? What's a good team to watch? How do you get back into hockey? I don't suggest that you watch the Flyers right now. I'll talk about Claude Giroux and that mess in a minute. They just promoted Danny Briere to this assistant to the GM. God knows if that's going to help maybe get some talent in. They say he's a good evaluator of talent. We'll find out. But what's a good team to watch and get back into hockey now?
I think, I'm a diehard Flyers fan, right? But I like watching Vegas. I like how they play. I like how they're structured. For people that don't know hockey or never been to a hockey game, if your first game is an NHL playoff game, I think you will always be hooked on hockey. Mm-hmm. There's nothing in my mind more exciting than an NHL playoff game when the fans, the energy, the speed, like everything's just ramped up. And it's like that across all sports, right? But there's something about being in an NHL arena during a playoff game where it's just pure loudness, chaos, etc. In certain markets, obviously. Other markets are a little more quiet. But I would say this year, I like how Vegas plays. Are
they still fighting?
Are they
still fighting?
Fighting in hockey.
That's what I miss. That's what I miss with hockey. I used to turn on when I was a young kid. I played hockey out in the streets and everything, and we just pretend to just throw the gloves off and just start fighting. Do we still have that, or has it calmed down over the years, Mike?
No, it's definitely calmed down, and it's calmed down for a couple of reasons. One, the league has calmed it down, but the players have also changed. Okay. You look at a guy like Marchand in Boston. Back in the day, 90% of the players used to be like him, right? And he gets suspended for little things now, and they just fine the guy $5,000 for squirting the water bottle on another player. And it's like hockey without animosity is figure skating. And in my mind,
that's a good one.
The regular season in hockey is extremely boring. And because I grew up in a time where a regular season game, there was animosity, right? When you play a team a couple times a week, and things happen on the ice, and animosity is what created great hockey. And that's why the playoffs are so much better than the regular season, because you're playing a team potentially 7 times in 2 weeks, and things are going to happen, right? And the refs let them play, right? The other thing that I don't like about hockey is the refs don't let them play, right? The game becomes 6 or 7 power plays, right? If you think about a power play, 7 power plays, that's 14 minutes of special teams hockey. Hockey was meant to be played 5-on-5.
Right.
Back
Good
in the
Lord.
day, there were less penalties, so then the power play and the penalty killing became important. When you know you're going to get 6 or 7 power plays, you know it's the power play. You can watch an NHL game, and my brothers and I do, and as time goes on, the refs are just waiting to make a call. They just feel the need, the flow of the game. It's like they're just ready to make a call, and it's just
or to even something out. Where they're
even
just like, oh, we
Exactly.
messed this one up earlier. We need to give them something
So
back.
that's their excuse.
Yeah.
my frustration with hockey is the fighting aspect has become almost planned, right? And now a guy takes a center ice hit that's a clean hit, and there's a fight for like no reason. Or the scrums in front of the net are done just because the players feel like they have to do it, but they're not really angry. Like it's very bizarre for me because I'm older and I grew up watching hockey where when you were pissed off because the guy took a shot at your goalie after the whistle.
Yeah.
That's
And
right.
Right.
Yeah.
Now I feel like the players, like it's just they feel the need to push and shove, but there's no real anger towards it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Ross,
No,
wait, am I on the right page there?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely, and it is. You talked about Marchand. One of the least liked players in the league is on the Capitals, my favorite team. So, it was so beautiful seeing Tom Wilson win the All-Star game, and I was just like, oh wow, he now has 2 championships that he's won on that Vegas ice as all those bastards boo him. So enjoy that. But I think there's that component, but as the concussions and painkillers and things like that, what I would ask anyone who doesn't like or who's upset that there isn't fighting in hockey to read the book Boy on Ice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the life and death of Derek Beauregard. And it talks about how, he knew he wasn't the best player, but they knew he was tough, and he got pushed through the system because he could fight and he was a big tough guy, and it ended in tragedy because it was, you're a cog in this wheel and we need you to do this thing. Mm-hmm. We need you to be the pugilist in here and just go cause fear for our team. We're not worried about how your hands feel. We're not worried about how your face feels, what's happening to your brain. And then the painkillers that you're going to take, whether legally or illegal painkillers to make yourself right. So that's every time. And with the Olympics ending right now, as I watch that, I'm just like, I really wish, and this would change a lot, but I really wish the NHL would go to Olympic-sized rinks. And have that open space. Let's see the talent of these guys really come out, because these skaters, these artists with the stick, things like that, I think we're past that point. We're past that 70s and 80s hockey where it was just, oh, awesome. Now we're gonna have a line party right now, and everyone's just gonna drop the gloves and go at it.
Could you imagine
humanity? We have evolved as consumers. We have evolved. We expect a certain level. Like if you're watching a show and it doesn't have good CGI, you're like, this is garbage. You want it to be crisp. You want it to be the best. So as you're watching hockey, it wasn't the best players that were fighting. They were there to protect the best players. But if you open up the ice and do it that way, so it's a transition. And I think we're in the toughest part of that transition right now, because you have guys like Mike and I who grew up watching Alan May, watching, everyone who protected the Stanley Cup players for the Flyers. And there's so many great stories of that, of like, if Bobby Clark got hit, you knew this guy was coming over the bench the next time up. So that's where I am with that.
Hextall sticks in my mind. So
could you imagine Connor McDavid on Olympic size ice trying to rein him in? I mean, Jesus.
But how beautiful would it be? Like it would be exciting every time he touched the puck. He's like that on tight ice.
Yeah.
You put him in the other ice with that room behind the net, and that's beautiful. Like that's exciting. That's highlight reels. That's what's going to bring people in.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing in the playoffs is the refs do call less penalties, right? I mean, that's proven, and that's what you might not have the fighting, but you still have the hitting, the speed, the plays, and Ross is right about crispness. Like, that energy when they let the play go for 5 minutes and there's no whistles and it's just awesome, right? If you're a hockey fan, to me, that's where the players, the fans, the refs, all are like, this is the best part of hockey, letting it flow, letting them play. And then when that whistle stops, everyone's like, that was awesome, right? That was like 5 minutes. It's when it is the refs calling penalties on stupid little infractions and it's choppy and there's TV timeouts and delays, right? It almost harkens back to when the NFL went over to England and they were booing during the huddles. Remember?
I do. Yeah. And real quick, the two things, like when I was watching hockey and I was really into it and stuff, like when I went to the games, I actually be there. I had more excitement than just seeing it on TV, and one time my wife and we went to a Capitals and Devils game at the Capitals, and we had great seats. We were behind the players. Okay. And even Michelle was like, what's that smell? I was like, well, it's the equipment. It's them, She's like, what? And then there was a big hit on the Capitol. Blood got onto the ice, and Michelle was like, is that blood? I was like, yeah. She's like, man, we don't see this in the other sports, So it's like, and that was her first hockey game, and she enjoyed every period. So I agree with that. And then on what you're saying about this new team, Vegas and Panthers and these non-Canadian teams, right? You was like, what happened to like the Canadian teams, like Edmonton and all those guys were like dominant. And now you have the Panthers are actually going to look like they're going to win this year. And they horrible, right? They were like, they didn't win no playoffs, right? They were 0, and now you're looking at these non teams. And then back to the fighting thing, you guys going to laugh at me, but players are young, right? It must be the millennium generation. So I don't know.
Look, I've been in the Wells Fargo Center when Matthew Barnaby would just fire up the whole Flyers crowd and would drive people crazy. And that's what you talk about, that animosity, right? Yeah. I was in the stadium. The best Flyers game I ever went to, and I used to have season tickets, was that when the benches cleared. It was the Ottawa Senators game. I don't know if you guys remember that. And I mean, it was whistle after whistle. Just everybody was fighting. There was no players left. So finally, when they dropped the puck, after there was like 5 or 10 bench clears and they were fighting, the fans started booing because they didn't want it to stop. They wanted to keep it going. And it was my dad and I were loving it. I have never heard the building that loud in my life. They just loved it. And that's that animosity, I think, that needs to come back. I mean, you talk about Sidney Crosby and Claude Giroux. They hate each other. They flat out said they hate each other. Now, that could be some of the gamesmanship too, but and then Barnaby says, oh yeah, I slapped his finger or slapped his hand during face-offs, and the whole thing starts, Giroux's complaining my hands got hit and he broke my wrist, Crosby broke my wrist every time we have a face-off, and it just gets that's what's fun about it. But like you said, you don't want to sacrifice the players' health, you want them to be fun. But yeah, I mean, that's the hockey I grew up with, kind of having those irritators on the ice, those agitators that really got you, make you hate that team, right?
But it's all the sports, right? Look at football. You used to be able to hit the quarterback, right? When we were growing up, like Sal, the quarterback, I don't know how they made it through games, right? Yeah. So every sport has gone through a transition in some capacity.
Yeah. Well, and I think that goes back to the quality of the product. Like, people expect a certain quality, and if you have that quarterback getting injured, we've seen teams with good quarterbacks and teams without good quarterbacks, and what that means to the product on the field. Mm-hmm. So if you're losing your most important player because someone who is the 22nd best player on the field takes a cheap shot at you, that's gamesmanship. But that also, at the end of the day, those same 32 guys that are choosing the coaches, they want to charge more for their tickets. They want to
Mhm.
charge more for their TV contract.
Yeah.
And if you have, I mean, what quarter? If you have Taylor Heineke as your quarterback
Mhm.
or Tom Brady as your quarterback, who are you going to pay more to see?
Yeah.
Hanky.
No, that's right.
Hinky. Yeah.
Not if the Eagles are playing them.
Unless you're Howie Roseman. He said the Eagles have a quarterback factory, so we're good there. That's what he said.
You can even see it in basketball, right? If you remember
Yep, I
basketball,
was just about to say
the Knicks
Yep.
Bulls, it was wrestling.
Pistons.
It was
Oh yeah.
Pistons.
Yeah.
Give me those
Yeah.
bad
Oh
boys.
yeah.
That was the
Man.
best.
For
like
real.
what was a foul, right? If you take
Clothesline.
if you take hockey, basketball, and football,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
and my brothers and I do this, we laugh our asses off. We'll play a minute of a hockey game from the 80s, and it's like,
Right.
that's a penalty, that's a penalty. That's a penalty.
Yeah.
In the NFL, right? Like, well, that would have been a 15-yard hitting the quarterback after the play. I mean, like, the hits
Yeah.
were brutal, right? So
Yeah.
Mhm.
all those sports have changed.
All the sports.
Yeah, they have, and I think
you're
it's
right.
probably safety rules, but at the same time, actually, the other way around. Sal mentioned the rink is shorter now, right? So the speed is more, right? So
And they got rid
these,
of the two-line pass.
so it's problem solve, problem create. I'm trying to say is like you're getting more concussions now in hockey than you ever had because of these guys going full speed at each other.
Well, the
with
players are bigger.
with a shorter. I'm sorry.
The players are bigger across.
Oh, and the players are huge. Yeah,
And they're faster.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
faster too.
they're faster
Yeah.
too.
I mean,
Yeah.
McDavid will skate around you in 2 seconds. I mean, he puts it like in another gear. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
If you go back to the great, like you said, Ross, the way the hockey was wider, and you go back to like Wayne Gretzky, you watch how he was just finessed, the way he moved, the way he did those things, man. You just looking at this guy, he just flow. And how's a goalie supposed to keep up with that? So yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Jermaine. Sorry.
I can't imagine me being on the rink and actually seeing a big old forward coming down and you're in the corner trying to get the puck and you don't see what's coming. Yeah. Okay.
So your head's
So
gotta be on the
Mike and
field.
I were college teammates for the ice hockey team at Western Maryland College,
Cool.
Okay.
and I have a scar across the tip of my nose here because we were playing against Gettysburg in Hershey,
Oh wow.
and someone took a cheap shot at Mike behind the net, and it was just so I followed them up and tried to take them out of the game, and they ducked, and I went face first.
Oh,
Like, over top and like catapulted, and I get up and like the ref blew the whistle and I get up. I was like, I didn't even hit him. What are you talking about? And he's like, son, look at yourself.
Yeah.
And like
Oh,
had blood
blood.
all down
Oh,
my face,
man.
all
Man.
down my jersey. And I drove home from Hershey that night back to Westminster, Maryland
Mm.
with a massive concussion, not understanding why all
Wow.
these headlights were giving me such a problem on my drive back.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So, well, awesome. Now, and kind of a good transition here. We're gonna talk about all pro sports. Because I think you're right. There is a lot of things that are changing. Moving to basketball a little bit now, this whole James Harden thing, and everybody's wondering, okay, Harden and B going to bring him a championship? What's going on? Do they give up too much to get Harden? Is the game of NBA all 3-pointers now? Do they really need a guy like Harden? Is it better just to go with Embiid? Or are you better with Curry back there shooting threes? So I know Jermaine's got nothing to say with the James Harden trade. So
I have nothing.
Jermaine, start us off, man. The Sixers screw this thing up or what?
Yeah, I think they did. They gave up too much. 2 first rounders, Seth Curry. Then you give up your big man, your backup. I just don't see this happen. I don't see this going well in the next couple years, especially if you don't win it in the next couple years. Harden is 32, and I keep telling you guys when we had our meeting on Friday, I said he's been to 3 teams in 14 months. I mean, how does that happen? I just don't understand how players, not just James Harden, but every player, if you're not happy somewhere, so you're just going to have a mental issue. And I'm not taking anything because Ben Simmons could have had a mental issue. Who knows? You know what I mean? Who knows at this point? And at this point, I really don't care. But at the same time, the players seem like they're controlling the league. And like I said, with the NFL, with the Rooney Rule and all that stuff. I mean, if you don't get this thing under control, everybody's looking at this. All other players are looking at this. It's like, okay, well, I'll just do what Ben did, or I'll just do what James Harden did, and whatnot. You know what I mean? And that's just that's just some of the few. And then they're controlling what they want to do, and it's frustrating. But Sixers, if you don't do it this year, and I seriously doubt it, you don't do it this year. There's too many tough teams in the Western Conference. You're not gonna do it. You're not gonna do it. And I was listening to Howard Eskin, and they put themselves in a bad prediction to where they don't have a first round pick until 2027, 2028 or something like that, because they gave up their 2 first rounds. I don't know how this whole salary cap, this luxury tax works and whatnot, but the way Howard was talking about, it's not good going forward. It's not with this.
You just need to buy some Les Snead shirts.
Some
and F them picks.
Yeah. So, diehard Sixers fan, but I'm just not liking it. And it just seems like with the fans being, oh yeah, we got, it's a mix of emotions in Philly, and I mean, I get it, but the ones that, this Harden's going to put us over the top. I mean, all right, buckle up, because I don't see it happening.
Dre, you see it happening. You said they get Harden, they're winning the championship. You were going the opposite.
I was. I mean, I'm not really. I'm both things. I'm excited that we got rid of Ben. Okay, what else could Sixers could have done to get rid of the guy? Even Doc Rivers is like, we keeping them on here for another year. They're just going to be stagnated. Okay, yeah, we got we get draft picks, but we got to keep building. They want to move on. So I think that, was it a desperate move? Possibility. But at the same time, I think Sixers are looking at trying to win now, I think. And they felt that Harden could be the best based on what they had to do with Ben Simmons. I do agree. Seth Curry was too much to give up. The draft picks, the 27th draft, 2027, I think it is. And they got to do it now. But if they can do it now and win now, then it won't backfire. So I felt, my initial thought, guys, you know how I am. I don't think first, I react. and I was like, good. Yeah, okay. So I wanted Ben Simmons out of there. Okay, I was like, good, we got him out here, and we're getting Harding. So okay, but that's how I feel.
Yeah. So, Mike, what do you think? Too much to give up for Harden?
So I'll caveat this with I'm, of all the Philly sports teams, I'm the least knowledgeable about basketball.
Okay.
But that being said, I like change, right? I like that they're being aggressive, right? At the end of the day, you can never say, whether it's the Eagles, the Flyers, the Phillies, the Sixers, well, they're not trying to win it, right? They're trying. This is a move to try to win it. The only thing I will say that if they could have kept Curry and gotten Harding, to me, Curry is he's the guy that can hit a shot in a playoff game or get you 12 or go off and get you 21 in a game that wins the playoff game, right? Like, with the way the two teams are aligned, an outside shooter that can just sit at the 3-point line and just get the ball distributed to him is a difference maker. So, but at the end of the day, Simmons wasn't going to play here. He was never going to play for the Sixers again. And you needed to get a player back that was going to play, and you got a former MVP player. So to me, how is that a bad thing? Will it translate to winning? They're going to have to get by the Nets. They're going to have to get by Milwaukee, right? The Bulls. I mean, there's tough teams, but you got Embiid and Harding, right? If 5 years ago you said the Sixers are going to have Embiid and Harding, you would say yes every time.
Right.
So let me ask you guys a question. I mean, just like let's go back to football real fast. LA Rams, what they did, all right, during the season and whatnot. How do you compare? I mean, I know they're two different sports and everything, but how do you compare? I mean, when you actually saw them get Matthew Stafford in all season, and then they got Odell Beckham, and then and a few other pieces, Von Miller and
Yeah, Von
everything.
Miller.
Did you see them winning the championship? I mean, because yes, they was trying. Yeah, like you said, the Sixers are trying to win the championship. But when LA did that, I mean, did you feel this like, oh, okay, well, they're over the top. They're going to win the championship.
I think it's hard to do. I think the best thing you can do, and this is, I mean, talking about Ozzy earlier, you may not be the most talented team every time, but you try to put yourself in the best position to win. So that doesn't mean you're going to have all the best receivers, but you look back at let's go back to the 2000 Ravens, and with how unbelievable that defense was, just like, you know what, we can win this with Trent Dilfer. And Dilfer was the right leader on the offensive side of the ball. So it was just like, you structure yourself of, here's our identity and here's what we want to accomplish. I'm going to get the best players for that to occur. So I'm going to spend all this money on the defensive side of the ball for that.
And roles and responsibilities, just like corporations and companies, when everyone does their role, you mentioned Trent Dilfer, he did his role, right? You think about the Rams, every player, what happened during the run to the Super Bowl, did their role, right? And executed their role.
And they found a hole, so they went and signed Eric Weddle off of high school coaching to come in and be their defensive play caller after not playing all year. So those guys never stop working. Like, what is the unturned stone that can give us the edge here?
Well, see, that's my thing back to the James Harden thing. I mean, can Embiid and Harden coexist? I mean, you got Embiid just playing out of his freaking mind. You know what I mean? Leading the league and scoring and all that stuff. And then you come in with Harden. I mean, Harden a couple years ago was the front runner for the MVP and everything. So can they coexist? Just like we just saying with the LA Rams. I mean, they bring people in here that can that bought into the system. Who's to say that Harden can't 3 teams in 14 months? That's what I'm going to say. So he's not buying into the system. That's just my thing, and that's what's concerning me with Harden, with this trade and everything. So,
well, and I think the NBA is the easiest for it to be exposed, right? Because there are fewer people on the court.
Yeah. Okay.
So you see immediately how that plays. As a long-suffering Wizards fan, I see that with Westbrook going out and feeling like, oh my God, we actually won a trade. And I love Westbrook, so I hate that he's going through what he's going through in LA. But even when they were talking about it, I was like, oh, he's not going to work there. He doesn't. You have to have those pieces fit.
Yeah.
And in the NBA, I think it's the hardest to do. And I also think the NBA draft picks there are more like monopoly money in the NBA than anywhere else. We're just like, maybe we hit on something, maybe we don't. I'll take this European player that we may not see for 7 years and hope something happens. And it's a weird dynamic with the NBA. And the fact that they're already talking about LeBron's free agency for 23-24, I'm just like, that turns me off from what's happening on the court.
Thank you.
And to add what Mike said about the role play, we got to have Thibault and Green to step up to fill in for Kerr, because there are our 3-pointer guys there. So they got to step into their role and make this thing work.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, well, guys, we're going to wrap this up in a minute or two. But before we do, I'd just like to thank our sponsor, Beefaroni. When you can't eat it, throw it. So now, before we go, I got to hear the story. Ross, is this a true story? Were there snowballs going on here and the beefaroni just been flying in place of it? What happened?
This is, if I need to introduce my college friends to people, like, this is kind of the story that I tell. So our buddy was a captain of the basketball team. So BW and I are walking outside. Mike and I were roommates on the 4th floor of a building that had like one of those elongated window outcroppings, or I don't know what you call them. So he's up in the room. We're downstairs, or we're on the floor level because it's snowing outside. And Brian and I are just like, nothing better to do, but our roommates left their windows open. So, okay, which of us can get 5 snowballs in their room first? So we're just out there throwing them and getting them in. I get my 5th one in, and I start yelling and jumping, and it's echoing back and forth on this quad. So Mike looks out the window to see what's going on. And he's just like, next thing I know, I am face first, knocked out in the snow with Brian hitting my shoulder. Are you okay? Are you okay? We come to find out, and I hear him yell up to the 4th floor, Mike, what'd you do? Nothing. And then Mike's down there 20 seconds later. Is he okay? Oh my God, is he okay? I got hit from the 4th floor of a building with a can of microwavable beefaroni in my neck. And it knocked me out. And
I ran down the
it
stairs.
Looked like the nastiest hickey. It looked like an octopus gave you a hickey. Like for a week. So like I'm wearing turtlenecks and stuff like that I would never wear because it looked awful. But I'm coming to, and there is beefaroni shrapnel in the snow because this can opened up against my neck.
God.
God.
There were like all these people surrounded Ross, like they were outside. And I remember, I don't know why I did it, but I remember the window. For the angle, I ran through the room.
It's 12 o'clock. I'm gonna give you some beefaroni.
And you may have started something here. Instead of the ice bucket challenge, it's going to be like the beefaroni challenge now. Like people are going to be chucking these things. So we got to be careful.
On no one.
Don't try this from home, kids. Do not try this from home. We don't want to get sued on enough bed.
And remember, guys, the laws of physics. So 4th floor, that thing's coming out quicker.
Sometimes he hits the side of the window
like
frame.
The mini asteroid.
Trying to get that out even of the window.
That's crazy.
Oh my gosh, that is a great. Oh my goodness,
that's crazy. That is crazy.
That is hilarious.
That's hysterical.
And you've been best friends since. Okay.
It's just continued on.
Right.
Look, anybody who goes face first into the glass in hockey for his friend, you got to give him credit.
Yeah.
But Ross has had some injuries, man. Between his concussion, if he didn't get a concussion from his hockey, he got it from beefaroni. It's like both, This guy's gotten beat up.
I tore the UCL and had to have my thumb reattached.
Oh,
damn! Playing against the Eagles, where Jeffrey Lurie was on the team in a softball challenge at M&T Bank Stadium.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God.
So there's another tie to Philadelphia for you.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That's great.
Wow, man.
Well, guys, thank you so much. This has been awesome. Again, feel free to email enoughsaidcrew@gmail.com. Ross and Mike, we cannot thank you enough. If you have the time to come back, we'd obviously love to have you
Please
again.
do.